But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about where we are in terms of technology, what is working in content, and how to make money as creators and developers. But I also want to talk about the dream of space and the things that really get the creative juices flowing for all of us who are in VR, because we want to create these awesome experiences. So for me, it's all about space. And I got into this some time ago, trying to sort of figure out how can you democratize access to space. And I think what's interesting with space is that what the astronauts tell us when they're up there at ISS space station, look down on Earth, you get kind of a different perspective on Earth. They call it the overview effect. And the overview effect, basically, you realize that we're just one planet, one species. There are no borders. Religion doesn't show from space. So we should just stick together and try to save this planet. So I started out with some experiments. Let's see if we can get next slide, maybe. Here we go. Spoiler. I started out with some augmented reality glasses. Remember the old Google Glass? And in space, you can prepare yourself going to space. So I'm going to space with Virgin Galactic, and then you can have these zero-G things, and you can get into centrifuge. So I've been looking at all these kind of VR space experiences, and I have 2 young daughters. So this is Athena. So one of the things we tried was you kind of lay down in one of these sensory deprivation tanks, and you're floating. And then you have your glasses looking down on planet Earth from ISS space station, and you're kind of floating in space looking down on Earth. So there's some really cool experiences. However, the first experience I tried, so I got into VR with Vive some 3-4 years ago now. And the first experience was the Apollo moon landing. And the Apollo moon landing was really awesome because not only was it a game, but it was kind of an educational experience. You can sit in the cockpit, you can land on the moon, and you really learn about what it was all about. And as it turns out, this is the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, now in July. And 50 years ago, I would argue, was also the year when we had the first VR headset. It was called the Sword of Damocles. It had to be suspended from the roof because it was so heavy, so if you let go, it would kind of crush the wearer. You think the VR headsets today are expensive? This was slightly more expensive, and I think we've come a long way. And at Vive, our perspective on VR is that you have this kind of continuum where you kind of move from the real world to this augmented, mixed reality world to a fully immersed world. And as you know, these new headsets, they're using more and more inside-out tracking. They're using cameras to map the world, but also for you to be able to see the world. So you can have these kind of blended experiences. And already today, there are these SDKs for you to create these blended experiences. So if you have this augmented reality game, say it's like a simple sort of kill the squirrels game, but you could very quickly open up a portal to a fully immersed world where you as a user then would kind of just, kind of step through, move yourself from augmented to fully immersed virtual reality world. And this is Project Ghost. This is, of course, a cool game. You go in and you shoot things up. But this could very easily be like an enterprise application, or you're moving from your home space to your workspace. So I think we'll see these hybrid experiences coming very, very soon. So, some people would argue, let's see if we can get this one. Some people will argue that, the hype around VR has kind of cooled off a little bit. However, there's never been more headset coming than this year. So just for Vive, for example, we're now launching out the Vive Pro Eye, so with eye tracking. You have the Focus, which is a standalone 6.6 device. We have the new Cosmos coming out later this year, which is a much easier device, also inside-out tracking. And then our friends at, Oculus is, of course, coming out with the Rift S and the Quest. We have our friends at Valve coming out with the Index. And, of course, Microsoft is actually having a second round with some great experiences from HP, from Acer, and, of course, Samsung. So actually, there's like more investments in VR than ever. And, of course, in order to be successful, we need to have great content and experiences. But one of the things I want to get your attention on is eye tracking. Today, eye tracking is available on our high end, but I do think that eye tracking is going to be a game changer. It's going to be something that's become standard, because some use cases where you are, for example, interacting with someone, avatar, social interaction, having eye contact, is much more important than having a Stevie Wonder experience, which is not as good. The other thing is that the way we interact with our environment, we need to move away from the point and click environment to actually just look and think. So I think that's going to be a game changer. And of course, as we move into 5G, as we move into more streaming solution, you want to provide the highest quality of experience where you're looking, but you can save on the processing where you're not looking. So having this foveated rendering experiences. There's a ton of these use cases for both consumer and enterprise. The other thing we started testing, which is actually showing some really promising results, is that if you have a standalone headset like the Vive Focus 6.6, you can actually stream high-end PC games, like for example, in this case, Superhot, or essentially anything, to your much more lighter standalone headset. So I think that will work on a sort of in a home environment from your PC, but in the not too distant future, you will be able to do this as a cloud gaming through 5G or other networks. The other thing that's happening with 5G networks is that, today, augmented reality is primarily through your phone, looking through the camera, and it's already here. And I think that there's so much potential here. Looking at my kids, of course, they could learn about, space or the asteroid belt in a completely new way. And there's so much potential here. I think when people think about AR, they think about Pokemon, who came out, some time ago. I would argue that this was kind of a simple game, not really augmented reality. It didn't really change my perception on reality. However, they done over like $2 billion. They have been doing 800 million downloads. It's very, very successful. But the thing that they launched last year was a short demo from their lab on occlusion technology. So I just want to show you a little bit how that looks, which I think is very, very promising. Let's see if we can do. So in this case, you have Pikachu and Eevee. You can see they're running around, but you can see that they're actually running behind things in real time. And I do think that once you actually have digital objects moving around in the real world, and then automatically sort of adapting to this world, so it becomes much more a realistic experience, that's going to definitely be a game changer. So I think Niantic is doing a great job. They're also coming out with their Harry Potter experience this year, which is going to be very exciting. So I think what we are at the brink where AR needs to sort of take the next step and move away from the phone to the glasses and the head. And I think that we have these kind of 4 key technologies coming. The first one is kind of heads-up display, like the Google Glass, which is kind of here and now and affordable. And then you're moving your way to see-through, which is the virtual reality headsets. You have the HoloLens approach, and then you have virtual retina display where you're kind of projecting into your eyes. So they're all happening, but they are like some of the ones at the end is like a little bit more expensive, a little bit further into the future, but it's definitely happening. And I think we're kind of arguing that the augmented reality race is kind of on. It's not that if this is going to happen, it is happening. The question is who's going to be the one coming out on top. So I think there's been a lot of augmented reality discussions here. So let's do a little hands up. How many of you would wear these glasses or some other in your normal day life in the next 12 months, do you think? Hand up, do you think? Let's see. So I would say like 50-50. Okay. So I do think that this is definitely going to come for consumers at some point. This is going to come for enterprise for sure. But it's all going to be about what can you do with this technology? What is the content and what is the experiences? Is it going to be Game of Thrones where you go back to Westeros and face the White Walkers? Or is it for you to try to fix your car and change the battery and actually get some support there? And I think that's where Viveport come in and the company iRun. So iRun Viveport, which you can think of it as the place where you go to find great content experiences. It's essentially 2 things. It's the app store for VR, games, videos, apps, but it's also a subscription service. Think of it as Netflix for VR, where you can basically log in and you have access to everything on the platform. So it could be everything from games, could be education experience, could be videos. We like to think of Viveport as like the airport into VR, where you kind of take off into whatever experience you want to have. So it could be something like a great game, but essentially everything. So we had some, we had some very, very good success the past 2 years, I would say. So this is basically revenue growth. And the reason I show you this is, if customers give you money, then you're doing something right. So we had 3 times more content than we had, a year ago. We have 3 times more customers. We have 3 times more revenue, which also means that we're giving, much more to our developer friends. To give you a sense for the growth is that our Q4, which is usually the best quarter in 2018, was larger than the entirety of 2017. And we think that that's going to continue going forward. The main reason for this is that we added 1,000 games on the platform. So before, we have a very close partnership with Steam, who of course, best in the world when it comes to gaming. So we kind of tried to stay out of gaming and focus on beyond gaming, things like education, things like art, culture, things like branding, social, etc. But I think we decided that the early adopters are gamers, so we need to meet their needs. The problem today is that when you add 1,000 games, you're not going to have time to play all of those games. Some of these titles look pretty cool, but actually they might be pretty shallow because it's early days in the ecosystem. Some of them might look a little fishy, but actually might be the best things that you love the most. You don't really know, and you don't have the time or the money to buy all of them. So the other thing that happened, that we've seen, there's some research coming out from IDC, for example, that on average, people in VR spend like 6 hours per month in a headset. 6 hours per month in a headset. That's not much, especially if you divide it by 30, you get like an average daily time. It's not much. Most of it is gaming. So one of the challenges we have as an industry is how can we get people to spend more time in headset? How can we have them find things that they really love and enjoy? And the problem today is that they will buy the premium high-end game that costs, I don't know, $30, $50, and they can only buy so many. So what happens if you don't really find something you love, you stop using the device. So what we want to do is we want to find a way for you to experience much more content as a consumer, but also help the long tail of developers make money and build their business. So we launched something called Viveport Infinity in April. And basically what it is, it's the world's first infinite subscription service for AR apps, games, and videos. It is unlimited access, and it's definitely the best value. So for less, so it basically costs like a Netflix subscription in your country. And for less than the price of one app, you actually get access to over 600 apps and videos. The other thing is that it works on all PC VR devices. It works for Vive, it works for Oculus, it works for Steam, it works for Microsoft. It also works for all the Wave standalone headsets like Pico and Vive Focus. So the idea here is that as a consumer, you have this, it's like your television. You might switch television from Vive to Oculus or from Oculus to Vive. You'll still have your account, you still have your content, it still works. So that's kind of, we think is important. But also as a developer, you can publish here, and then you can reach the audience on all these devices. You don't have to publish to multiple headset stores. So what kind of things do we see working? And I think the things that are really working is that if you have some of these more premium titles, typically these, if you take, I don't know, Rush is one of the new titles, or Angry Birds. So if you take Angry Birds, for example, it costs $15. The service costs, probably somewhere between $8 and $12, depending on how long you commit. So rather than paying for one app, you subscribe and then you get Angry Birds and 600 more things. So the value proposition is very, very strong. The other thing we do is that we provide things like a free game. So last month you got LA Noir for free. We do discounts. We have some things that are only available on Viveport, like Ready Player One. We have a lot of arts and culture, cinematic things. So if you want to go and check out the Leonardo da Vinci exhibition in the Louvre, you will probably not find that on your normal game store, but you'll find it on Viveport. So the other thing we launched also is something called Viveport Video. So Viveport Video is an app that is a standalone. It has all these sort of free videos that you would expect. But if you're a Viveport Infinity subscriber, you also get premium content that you would not get normally. So if you look at little a little infinity symbol there, some of those titles are only there. So one of the problems that content creators and brands have today is that they don't want to publish an app on different headsets, on different platforms. It costs too much. And their monetization on video is not really there today because advertising doesn't work when you have a low installed base. So what we want to help is basically if you are a brand, if you're Discovery Channel or AMC or whatever you are, we can provide you a branded channel where you can have some free content as well as premium content to help you monetize. So the reviews today has been pretty good actually. Most of the industry, both press, users, and I would say developers are very happy. It's still early on. We just launched in April. And next week, we're going to try to move beyond Vive. So for everyone who has an Oculus Rift S and bought that from Oculus, we're going to give them 2 months of Infinity. And everyone who already have an old Oculus Rift, we're going to give them 2 months as well. And if you're buying a Vive Index, we're going to give you 2 months as well. So we're hoping that more people will discover this. Because if they do, their customers will be happier because they'll explore much more content at an affordable price. And all those developers who are not necessarily the top 10, but maybe the top 300, will now have customers experience this content, and they're going to get money. So this is my favorite press quote. Everyone talking about the Oculus Quest. I have one myself. I love it. And there was this article, and there's been outrage. I don't know if you heard about the demonstrations in the street where people taken to the street said, Oculus Quest won't have Viveport Infinity, the Netflix of VR. Oh no, let's go out and demonstrate. Just kidding. But I do think that we're a small business. We're like you. We're working hard, and actually getting the recognition that people are upset when they don't have us is very good. The other thing is that I think it's interesting. Our friends at Microsoft Mixed Reality in the Steam survey actually passed 10% market share. And I think they're having some pretty cool things coming, not only from Samsung, but also Acer and HP. So next week, we're going to have native support for Windows Mixed Reality devices. You can find it. We have over 200 titles starting already today, actually. So what is this Infinity, and why you as a developer creator should think about it? Well, first, you get 80% rev share. And out of that 20% that we take, we actually pay for the credit card charges, which is around 5–6%. And we only charge this if we actually sell something. So we are looking to triple our customer base, which means that there will be 3 times more revenue. We increase the price from $8.99 to $12.99, so it's 45% up. And then also the model is that if a user play your title, you get paid. So that's kind of a usage-based model. And what we do for you is a couple of things. We are featuring you in the store. We're advertising you in paid media. We're creating blog, video, social posts. We push you into over 1 million customers around the world in one-to-one emails. We, of course, bundle you with our hardware, or potentially now other people's hardware. And then we protect you with DRM, and we manage all the payments. So you actually can sit back and relax, and hopefully we'll give you some additional money. So I wanted to show you just very quickly the amount of level we did. So since we're talking about space, I wanted to give you one developer story that we did, which I think is kind of a good showcase for what we do for developers.
Awakening VR experience about our position in the universe. Start from Earth, and then you see the other planets, and you start seeing what's beyond the solar system, and you go to the galaxy and beyond.
Orbital Views is a brand that is intended to provide access to users to send people into space in a virtual way. And in this brand we have 3 products: Orbital Views Flight, Orbital Views Moonwalk, and Orbital Views Overview.
We started by doing flights with the space agency in Europe on the plane that's used to train the astronauts. In the flight, they are truly in weightlessness, just like astronauts.
You equip a virtual reality headset that lets you walk on the moon or go to the Mars Martian base or even do zero gravity inside or outside the ISS.
But it's very limited in terms of user, and we wanted to make it more accessible. So we created other experiences to give access to space, but on the ground.
Orbital Vive's moonwalk is...
You get the idea. But essentially what we want to do, we want to create you as a developer become the hero and have your story, which is typically just more than that one app that you publish, to help you, it's not just for sales, but maybe it's for your next round of funding and to build a name for yourself as well. Okay, so let me show you, we actually have roughly 1 month plus since we launched. And we compared this data with our subscription service that we had last year, which was more limited. You could just select 5 apps. So the key finding so far is that customers select more content, so twice as much more content in the subscription service versus last year, which is great. So on average now it's 4 to 5 apps that they actually play every month. Customers in subscription spend more on downloads. So what happens is that it's not, even though you get free access in subscription service, what happens is you come back to the service and you see these new things that are just released that are still in pay and download. So that is actually driving more sales for developers as well. And the other thing, which is really interesting, is that developers have got 3 times more revenue per subscriber. 5 minutes, okay. So which means that the amount of money going back, so for example, if you have $12.99, essentially, if the user only play your title, you get $10 that month for that subscriber. And then finally, we looked at, on average, every played title actually made more money now than versus a year ago. So we're starting to see some good signs, which is helping the long tail of developers. So the other thing we learned is that you need to be both sticky and shiny. So think about something like Game of Thrones, HBO's sort of prime piece. Of course, it is very, very shiny because you signed up for it to watch Game of Thrones. It's also very sticky. You kind of stick with it. But sometimes we found that maybe this demo of Star Wars brought a lot of people in, but it's maybe Tilt Brush that you come back to all the time and create new things, or that social app that makes you stay with the service. But today we're actually very happy to launch something which we think will be shiny, and a lot of people are excited about Game of Thrones. Some of them are upset about Game of Thrones. Here in the Western world, people are upset because the last episode didn't end so well. In China, people are upset because they didn't show the last episode at all. It was kind of cut off due to the trade war, which is kind of interesting. So you have a couple of 100 million people are upset. But today we're launching, only on Viveport, a short sort of arcade experience where you can travel back to episode where you went beyond the wall for the first time. So I'm going to show you this trailer. Let's make sure we have some high volume. Here we go. So with that, hopefully we together can create this new monetization model where it's good for consumers who can spend more time in content and for developers to make more money than just selling the first couple of weeks. Thank you very much.